It's the music that crashed. There's a war on.
It is my absolute pleasure to finally introduce to you guys episode 1 of a series I call Gilded Minutes. For this episode, I got to sit down with Rachel Brown and Nate Amos of Water From Your Eyes. Water From Your Eyes, for those who are not aware, received Best New Music from Pitchfork for their last album titled Everyone's Crushed. And currently they are being raved about by Rolling Stone in anticipation of their next record called It's a Beautiful Place. We dove right into it and we had an incredible conversation, and I'm so excited to share that with you now. Enjoy, and I can't wait for this series to develop and for you guys to see what I have in store for you and who I have in store for you, because we already have some incredible guests lined up. And I hope that you guys will like, subscribe, and stick around to see who those artists might be. Enjoy. First off, I just want to say thank you guys for coming so much. I got to catch you guys at the boat show, and that was an incredible experience just to catch all the bands on the ticket. But in particular, it was just a restorative experience seeing the energy that you guys are able to pull out of a crowd. You know, it's like your guys' mosh pit is one that I want to jump inside of. And I don't often feel that way about mosh pits. I just had an incredible time seeing you guys live. And I remember during that time, you guys mentioned that it was your first time performing in quite a while. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm pretty bad at math, so it turns out it was only 5 months.
But you guys were saying prior to that, you guys were performing like every 6 weeks?
Yeah, I think maybe the longest we went was 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And what was it like after the hiatus, stepping back into that scene? Is stage fright still something that you guys have to deal with at this point in your touring career? Were there nerves, or is that just like riding a bike?
I feel like there used to be a little more like high nerve situations, but honestly, after we played this like giant show in Mexico opening for Interpol,
160,000 people, right?
yeah, and so even if it's like a bunch of people, it's still like less than 1% of that. So
Sure.
it's that, at least for me, erased any stage fright that I was dealing with at the time.
I get more nervous before we play, but I find that it's only... I think it's gotten better just because I've gotten so used to being in venues that I just won't think about the show until it's about to happen, and then I'll get really nervous. But as soon as we start playing, I guess I either check in or check out. I just don't think about that again until the next time we have to play. I don't know. I did a reading yesterday of poetry, which like I wouldn't consider myself a poet, so that made me so much more nervous than 160,000 people.
I find it interesting that you said you don't consider yourself a poet, but a lot of your songs, there is almost blatant poetry. I guess you could argue that all songwriting is poetry, but it does feel like there are more blatant attempts at spoken word that go on throughout Structure and even briefly on Everyone's Crushed. So I find it interesting that you don't consider yourself a poet. What do you feel is like different, the distinction there?
I couldn't publish like a book.
Sure.
You know, I don't consider myself a poet because like I'm not involved in like a poetry community. Like I don't go to readings.
Sure.
I like don't really write poetry. Like on occasion I will. I certainly don't read it out loud. I feel like music is different because the lyrics are like only one half of it.
What made you actually show up to a poetry reading last night? And why is that all of a sudden you're sizing up to?
Because my friend from high school, who I haven't seen in a really long time, who lives in New York, I just like never see her, and she hit me up and she was like, do you want to do this reading for she has like a quarterly reading event series. And I wanted to hang out, so I said yes. And then I forgot that I had to do stuff,
Like
in
actually
front
write.
of people.
And then,
I just was like, yeah, that sounds cool. I just wanted to see her.
yeah. Did you write something special for the occasion, or do you have a collection of poetry that you were able to consult?
This year I've been writing poetry more. I have like 2 poems that I would consider to be poems. So I just read those because I didn't, and then I sang like a song. She was like, are you gonna play or read? And I was like, I don't know.
I feel like this is really on brand for Water From Your Eyes. I feel like you guys have an incredible relationship with your ability to create and maybe a frequency that I think is really impressive. You guys both have very acclaimed solo projects, and then of course the shared project of Water from Your Eyes. But you are now into poetry. You directed your own video. Can you talk to me a little bit about where that comes from? Has it always felt like your creativity was so easily accessible? And it seems like you guys really do it for yourself, which is also very unique.
I mean, I think it's just a compulsion. I go crazy very quickly if I'm not actively working on something, so I try to fill my time with it. I don't know if it's because it's a distraction from other things, or if it's because it's what I most like to do, or some combination of those two things. But it's been a long-term constant for me since I was very small. Yeah.
Do you do other stuff?
Not really. I mean, music is just such a wide open thing. There's so much within music and sound. I just never really get bored of it, because if I get bored of one thing, you just move on to the next thing, and by the time you're bored of that, you're ready to hop back to whatever. You know, the way that I've come to think about it over the last decade is that it's essentially like physical activity. It's like, you know, just because you get bored of jogging doesn't mean you're getting tired of like playing a sport or something. There's just always another thing to do, and I feel like music is something where there are like limitless subdivisions. I think music is just the thing that I gravitated to because it's the art form that I was exposed to the most as a child, and it's just the thing that I kind of committed to from a very early age, and I haven't really felt the need to do anything else. I feel like it just as easily could have been painting or drawing or something, but I didn't come from a painting family. I came from like a music family, so it's just kind of how it went.
Do you remember your first CD?
My first CD?
Yeah, or cassette, or
like a CD that I bought,
maybe, or
a
like maybe the
burned
first
CD?
one you were gifted, or that you bought that like you remember just burning the heck out of.
I had a lot of the music that I really wanted to listen to as a kid. My parents did not want me to listen to for whatever reason.
Sure.
So I would get burned copies of CDs from friends. Like when I was like 8 years old, that's when the CD burners were kind of first a thing. I think maybe the big first three were Astro Lounge by Smash Mouth, Enema of the State by Blink-182, and Hybrid Theory by Linkin Park.
Yeah.
Those were all ones that I kind of like spun to death. Also the self-titled Sublime album.
Cool.
Was a big one.
I actually had a feeling that you were a Hybrid Theory kid.
Yeah.
That was like one of my first as well. My
Yeah.
actual first was Confessions by Usher. For some reason, as like an 8-year-old kid, someone gave me the deluxe version for like a holiday. And I was like, okay, thanks. But then I was like, actually, thanks. This is really special. But yeah, I think my first three were Usher, Confessions, Avril Lavigne's debut, and then Linkin Park,
one,
Hybrid
yeah.
Theory. Just a moment. What about you, Rachel?
The first CD I ever got was Loco by Avril Lavigne. I think I was like 7, and she blew my mind.
Yeah.
And then the next one was American Idiot by Green Day,
Yeah.
because my older cousin
Yeah.
told me it was really cool.
Yeah.
But my parents had some CDs that I would listen to, like when I would, all the time. Like I got a CD player, and actually one of them was Smash Mouth, Fu Shu Mang, the album before Astro Lounge, Matchbox 20's Yourself or Someone Like You,
Cool.
and America's Greatest Hits.
A classic for good measure.
Yeah, I had a CD player. I would listen to CDs when I fell asleep. So I know a lot of those CDs really well, like the front half, because in the back half I would fall asleep.
Yeah, that's so funny. I had a playlist in high school that was like all these old jazz standards. It was like Billie Holiday and like Frank Sinatra, but like all the sleepier stuff. And I knew around like track 4 or 5, I knew those songs so well, but everything else just completely trailed off because I was passed out by then.
The sleeping thing made me realize that I actually like left out something really important. Is really the first 2 CDs that I truly like loved to death were Millennium by Backstreet Boys and No Strings Attached by NSYNC. I think those were the first real CDs that I was like, I want this, and my parents got it for me. And a couple of years earlier,
Sure. Yeah.
Probably
I had
more
those
important.
too. There's definitely a Backstreet Boys to Linkin Park pipeline. I believe very much. And Rachel, what about your relationship with creativity? Is it something you always felt attached to and like in control of, or was it something that arose out of necessity at a later point in your life?
I guess it was something that I was always interested in examining. Like when I was like really little, I wanted to be an artist.
Like a painter?
Yeah, but I'm just not talented in that way. My mom put me in like ceramics classes when I was like a kid at our park. 'Cause I guess like the park near my house had one of like the only kilns in the city, and it's like the public park.
Yeah.
So I guess I was always interested in doing art of some kind, and then when I got older, I dabbled in photography, and then at one point when I was a kid, I really wanted to learn how to play the guitar. But it was something, I don't know, I guess my creativity was something I did pretty privately for a long time.
Sure.
It was something that I enjoyed doing, but I wasn't necessarily interested in sharing. I don't know, when I was 12, my parents asked me what I wanted to do with my life, and I had just gotten really into SNL. So I was like, I guess I want to like write for television.
Sure.
I like went to school for film production. I actually have a pretty poor relationship with my creativity in regards to like screenwriting and filmmaking, and I have a much easier time making music, even though I don't actually necessarily, that's not really, I mean, I love making music, and like I love being in this band, but like every time I watch a movie, I'm like, whoa, I really want to do that, and then I just don't.
That's really interesting. So when you were starting to craft an idea of how your creativity was going to express yourself, you were pretty convinced that it was going to come through cinematography, visual storytelling, or the writing aspect?
Like writing, like screenwriting.
So being able to tell a good story that could then be translated into film and work in that process.
Yeah.
When did the line blur to where all of a sudden your knack for writing all of a sudden started feeling musical to you?
I mean, I'd been writing songs since I was like a kid. I started doing it like pretty often when I was like a teenager, but I didn't share my music with anybody, and like not even my friends or my parents knew that I made music.
Or was it just like for you? Were you writing it for catharsis at that point?
Yeah, it was definitely cathartic, and it was something I enjoyed doing. I liked it better than doing my homework.
Sure.
And then in college, I just got more acquainted with people in the underground music scene. Like, I was going to a lot of shows instead of doing more film-related stuff. I just felt more comfortable around music. I mean, I have imposter syndrome in general, but when you come up in like a community of people making music where no one's doing it for like a career, it feels a lot less pressure than going to like a pretentious film school where everybody wants to be the next Scorsese.
Yeah.
I guess I just felt a lot more comfortable sharing what I was doing musically with the people I knew doing music than I was comfortable sharing any screenwriting ideas or even
Sure.
scripts with.
So you guys have been on the receiving end of a lot of really positive praise. You guys have gotten the coveted Best New Music from Pitchfork, which I feel like is a massive thing for many musicians to strive for and reach. Rolling Stone called your new album jaw-droppingly brilliant. You're very much sort of going through the milestones that tells you you guys are an important band. You guys are doing all the right things. I think they also said that you're one of the most original sounds of the last 25 years. So when you say you have imposter syndrome, can you talk to me about like how your brain sort of, I guess, like takes that in or almost maybe doesn't? Can you talk about like what it's like to receive such incredible praise and acclaim while also still feeling like,
I mean, I'm super grateful. Those are really nice things to
Yeah.
be told. I don't know. I mean, I guess for me, I'm like, well, I didn't make the music. I'm just posting and they hand me the microphone. I guess it's easier for me to take it with a grain of salt because I don't feel particularly responsible for any of it. It's just happening and I'm around. So I guess it's easier for me to just like enjoy the ride.
Nate, what do you have to say about that?
I honestly like try not to think about it too much because if that's the feedback that's coming in, it means the system is working. So I try not to let any of that feedback affect the system or whatnot.
Say more. What's the fear there?
Well, I feel like a lot of what has allowed Water From Your Eyes to become whatever it is that it developed in a very unbothered way, and we made very few, if any, conscious decisions along the way about what it was going to be. And we've kind of like joked that Water From Your Eyes isn't really either of us. It's just this like floating orb that we follow around. And as soon as you think about feedback enough, then that's inherently going to change the process. I feel like it is something that we're experiencing more than creating, because it feels like it just kind of happens and then it exists all of a sudden. It's very different than like with our own personal projects where we're like writing songs. Like it's like a thing you can point to. Like I sat down and wrote that song with Water From Your Eyes. Well, it's almost like more of like a spiritual the whole thing is based on not thinking about it. So when you're engaging with the feedback, you're automatically thinking about it, and incredibly grateful for the positive feedback we've gotten. And I wouldn't say it's like a fear, because it is like it's positive reinforcement.
Sure.
But it's also a really good reason to keep that uninterfered development intact. So you got to kind of just like let it wander and see where it goes. I mean, it's always a relief if we get good feedback, because frankly, like we never finish a Water From Your Eyes album and I'm like, yeah, that's good. It's always just like, Jesus Christ, what have we done? And I hope people don't like dislike it at the very least. So as long as people don't not like it, then I'm happy. If they like it, that's a bonus.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's always just funny reading those things. Like, that's a hot take. Like, that's awesome, but I don't know what any of us are doing anymore at all.
The Rolling Stone thing was funny because I wasn't expecting it to be that positive. And honestly, like, it's not like there was some master plan for like, let's make this album. It was literally just like, okay, we should probably have another album out sometime soon. And me just like looking through my computer and being like, okay, like how can just something functional be built out of these kind of like raw materials? Like once the ideas are there, it's kind of like, you just kind of have to trust in the initial kernels of ideas that kept you engaged, because if something's not interesting, then you just forget about it. And like my file organization is like really fucking horrible. So in order for it to be worth it to dig something up, like it has to be memorable and something that I'm excited to find, because just finding it is gonna take so much. But if you trust in those initial ideas and you kind of get enough distance between you and those ideas, then it's more kind of like just editing. So it's like putting this album together felt more like arranging furniture in a room than trying to make any sort of statement, I guess. So they're kind of like two halves of it. There's like the creative part, and then there's just the functional part, where you're essentially just trying to build a chair that doesn't collapse when you sit in it.
It's really cool to hear you guys talk about how Water From Your Eyes feels like this thing that you sort of follow around. It's almost like an intuition, whereas This Is Lorelei and Thanks For Coming feel perhaps a little bit more concentrated efforts in a way. I guess I can see how positive feedback, I guess the fear is you get best new music from Pitchfork. Another artist might spend the next effort trying to recreate the sounds and experience that got that acclaim for the first one. And then you get stuck into a moment, you get stuck into your own tropes in a weird way, and it starts to hinder your growth.
You know, that itself isn't something that I felt like we've had to worry about too much, because with everyone's crushed, it's just like, I don't remember how any of that stuff got made. You know, we don't really run the risk of trying to make the same thing again, because when you don't remember how you did it in the first place, you know. And frankly, like, I feel like both of us used to be in a situation where we would make music like really fast and release it all the time. So when there's 2 years in between Water From Your Eyes albums, it's like we might as well be a different band with different people every time. So I don't worry too much about trying to make the same thing again, because it's kind of like an impossible thing to begin with, you know?
I love that. I love that.
I think we both strive to always grow as people and artists or whatnot. But I guess neither of us seem to be striving towards anything in particular besides being like financially stable. It's such an honor to be critically acclaimed, as they say.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awesome for me, but it's more awesome for my parents, because otherwise I think they'd have a lot of questions about what I've been up to with my time. I feel like these things, I don't know, awards. I mean, I haven't won any awards actually, but
There's sort of award.
These awards.
these,
It's
what
definitely
is it?
something to be proud of.
Compliments that
Yeah,
they
sure.
put online, and they type them out. They type the compliments out and then they put it online. I feel like it mostly is just really validating that I'm not a bum.
Sure.
Because there's been many points that I've really wondered, like, why did I think that following like this pull was gonna lead anywhere?
Sure.
Because I think sometimes it can feel like, why would you think that you're gonna be the exception?
So I used to make music in high school, and something I thought about a lot is there was a point in my life where making music was the thing I wanted to do, and that took into account becoming the exception, right? Becoming the person who does get best in music, becoming someone who can sell out tours. And to even get to that place it's such interesting mental gymnastics. And when you like sort of look at musicians from a distance and the lifestyle of making music with the hopes of making it a career, it's kind of by all accounts like a ludicrous undertaking. Like, it's so challenging, particularly now more than ever, right? Maybe getting fans is a bit easier, but monetizing those fans is a whole other journey. How do you grant yourself permission to believe you can be an exception to the rule? But it's a wacky journey, and you guys are crushing it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. It was kind of an accident. That's the funny thing about this project, is that's not what we were even really trying to do. We were just kind of trying to hang out and play punk shows.
When I first met Nate, it was my dream to live in like a DIY house and have shows in my home, and now that's my biggest nightmare. I don't even have a house, but if I did, I would not want a bunch of strangers in it.
I was always making my own music, but I never took it seriously as a career option, because again, it is like ludicrous. And even if it is something that's feasible, like, you can't be the judge of that for yourself. It's an impossible thing to try to evaluate your own art beyond your own standards. So that goes back to like the imposter syndrome thing.
I was actually just talking to my best friend from childhood. We've been friends since we were like 4 or 5. And I mean, like, I don't know anybody who did this when I was growing up. Like, we both went to grade school with like the drummer from Twin Peaks, the Chicago band. And that was like crazy, and they were all in high school, and we were like, whoa, but I never was like, oh, like, yeah, that's something that you can do. But I think it's funny because people love art, and they love entertainment. But if you are trying to do that and not finding success, people think you're a loser.
Sure.
Like I mean, like I love my family, but I have these great aunts. I remember at one point they're like, "So you're like gonna look for like a job, like a real job? Like you're gonna like stop being on tour and like look for a job?" And I was like, "This is like the closest I'm getting to like a job. Like I think I'm like might get like a record deal. Like, but before there's anything that other people can see, they're just like, why are you wasting your time? Like this isn't gonna go anywhere." Luckily, my parents were really supportive. I mean, they were like, you really need to make money.
Does your family get your music? Like, do you feel like they've arrived to the place where like everyone's crushed makes sonic like sense? Yeah, because I feel like the process of experiencing everyone's crushed is like first listen or two is like sensory overload. And then the more you sort of listen to it, it feels like things sort of fall into place. It's all of a sudden the sort of jaggedness of it makes a lot of sense. Do you feel like your family has gotten to that point, or are they still stuck in sensory overload?
Both of my parents really love music, so they're both very supportive. I think my dad likes it. He kind of likes anything. He just likes music.
Sure.
He loves to catch a vibe. Anybody outside of them, I think my brother thinks it's pretty cool. But I wouldn't say there's a single person in my family who's interested in like indie music in general, much less experimental indie music.
I don't even really know if I understand everyone's crush. Like, I don't know how I would ever expect my parents to. But that's why we have these Rolling Stone articles and stuff.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Like, that's for the parents and the aunts and the uncles.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about the new record and stuff that stood out to me. I got to listen to it for the first time today, and it's quite a departure from Everyone's Crushed. But I think there's a couple things that stood out to me. And the first thing that initially was interesting to me was right there in the title, right? The last record was Everyone's Crushed, and then this one's It's a Beautiful Place, right? It's almost like...
I don't think about that.
I guess to me it represents some sort of ideological shift, or maybe like a change in temperament and how you guys are experiencing life, or it almost feels like the flip side of a coin, right? It's like everyone's crushed, but it's a beautiful place.
I think that's what it is. It's like one's a red album, one's a blue album. It's kind of just like Pokemon, or like, I don't know. It's like blood versus water.
I thought you were about to say Blood versus Crips.
No.
It's like, I don't think that's
No, I'm thinking about Survivor. I think one is like an album of decay, and the other one's like an album of growth. In a lot of ways, I think it's humans versus nature in some ways.
I was just gonna say, when Everyone's Crushed came out and we did all the interviews, it felt so nihilistic to talk about it and to like talk about where we were at when we were making it and how the world around us kind of felt. And then, you know, it reached way more people than I ever thought any of our music would. So when we were talking about this album before anything, just like in conceptual terms, when we would talk about making another album, I did think it was important for it to be like optimistic, because when you have a platform that I guess we have and like people like want to know what you're thinking about and what you're doing is like being actually seen and heard, I just thought it was really important for us as like a human race to like remain optimistic, because otherwise you'd just give up, and I don't believe in that. I believe that like human life is worth fighting for.
This is really interesting to hear you talk about this. Structures to me, upon its close, there is a distinct sort of melancholy where it ended. It was somber, it was sad. Absolute banger, but somber and sad. But then with Everyone's Crushed, it felt more like there was anger there. And when it closed out, it didn't close out like senselessly angry, at least to me. It didn't feel that way. It felt a bit rebellious, like it felt like this upswell of energy. And I feel like with It's a Beautiful Place, it felt like it almost took the torch and carried that upswell more into a place of optimism. I was actually going to ask if you found it to be an optimistic album, because to me, the things that you guys have said about the record, it strikes me as existential, a little bit absurd, but not yet nihilistic. There's a curiosity, there's like a leaning in, I feel. Can you guys talk to me about the existential underpinnings of this, like maybe some of the personal journey? I know you said that for you, this was almost an album of becoming afraid of God again.
That's what Nate said.
Yeah, that was
That was you.
that was me. I mean, structure is very introverted, I think, in that it's like it feels like a kind of like melancholy examination of the self. And then Everyone's Crushed feels more like a scathing Yelp review of humans or something. And it's very much focused on Earth, on the planet, whereas I think with It's a Beautiful Place, it's more about relative scales of significance and insignificance. This is all kind of like pre most of the lyrics, but in terms of making the music itself, you have all these songs that cover a pretty wide range of styles within rock, pop, indie rock, whatever you want to call it, framed in between these two pieces of sound that are more based in physics than anything else, and setting like a wide kind of swath of different musical styles against something that's more like a sound you would hear in nature, something you realize that music, even just within the context of sound, is a tiny thing. And then obviously like any sound could be music, and that's a whole other thing. So, and then the sound is just one thing among many other things.
Wait, can I just say something really quick? Anybody watch Sex and the City, and you know that scene where Carrie's dating the jazz guy and they're outside of New York and he's like, New York City, it's all jazz, baby.
I think that's an example. I think about that anytime people are like, all sounds are music.
I not only know that scene, but I feel like horrifyingly seen by that character, because I feel like I might unfortunately be that man.
I'm so sorry.
I mean, honestly,
Sex
like
of the City
that
reference.
note, it's like, I don't know, the most interesting music is usually like the sound of machinery and the sound of nature. But I'm trying to think, how do I get on the whole God thing? Yeah, I can't remember exactly what tip I was on, but I think I was reading a lot about the moon and the fact that the moon is exactly the right size and the right distance that we're allowed to have a solar eclipse, which is something that does not exist in any other moon-planet relationship that we know of. And kind of thinking more and more about, again, the simultaneous absurdity and perfection of everything, and reading ancient mythology. I guess something happened where all of a sudden I found myself thinking a lot more about hell again. Because going to church as a kid, you just end up like super scared of hell, and then like I just completely hated that shit and rejected that for so long. And I guess it's not even so much a fear, but like a growing respect for the natural order of things, and trying to understand why something like music or interpersonal relationships or anything feels so significant to us when the harsh objective reality is that we are a tiny blip in what exists. So what is that? It's that artifact of consciousness? If so, that's beautiful as hell.
I mean, isn't that like literally the theory of relativity? That there is no like objective truth, that like, yes, the objective truth is that we're a blip, but also like each lifetime, no matter what point you die, is forever for who's ever experiencing it.
Yeah, well, that's like that's what makes it a beautiful place. That's what makes it's a beautiful life, because like, in spite of whatever nihilistic shit you can throw at the wall, you know, it all sticks. That doesn't change the fact that in the face of all that, every little moment of every day is hugely significant, and the way we treat each other is incredibly significant. And I guess searching for that weird kind of middle ground between cold hard truth and a sense of spirituality somehow fucking made this album. I don't know.
Weirdly, we both arrived at space separately.
Yeah.
When I went to go write the lyrics, I'd been thinking about space, and Nate had also just been thinking about space, but for different reasons.
I really resonate with a lot of the thinking that has gone around this album. I'm someone who also finds myself in this weird pull between we're all so small, we're all so insignificant, but it all still feels so important, right? I'll read this quote because I thought it was beautiful, and I'd like anyone who's watching to have access to it. But you said, a song can feel like communicating vast emotional landscapes, but your favorite album is less important than any person. That person is less interesting than any dinosaur. That dinosaur is less important than any mountain. That mountain is boring compared to any planet. That planet is only a part of a solar system. That solar system is microscopic next to any galaxy. If music and all other human practices are meaningless on a cosmic scale, why does it feel so important? That's kind of like the great human question, right? That like sort of every philosophy and religion has tried to take a stab at answering. But based off what we know, everything has weirdly had to be perfect to exist, right? One of my favorite statistics is if the weight of hydrogen was like 1/1000th of a gram heavier at the time of the Big Bang, the universe would have never escaped its mass. And if it was 1/1000th lighter, it would have raced away forever, and there would have been no opportunity for material interactions. And that's probably the biggest example of like how everything is sort of held in this very perfect, delicate, but ultimately like strangely meaningless and like incomprehensibly small but large experience. And I think having that as a rumination for music is just a stunning place to be operating from. And it was like kind of this moment of, I don't know, like validation even for my thoughts, like getting to see how you guys think about this music. It's really gorgeous.
Well, you just said it in a tidier way than I really could. So
With
I'm
your
glad you
tidy
get it.
quote.
Yeah.
First question is actually from a mutual friend of ours. I will turn this over to you guys.
Oh,
Hello.
Hello, this is Miles from Chicago. I'm wondering at what point in your creative process you start to brainstorm and conceptualize visuals that pair with your music. Rachel, I know you direct and edit a lot of your music videos, and I think that gives you both a really cool level of creative control over your ultimate vision, and I'd love to hear more about that process.
It's the first part is that the cover of this album was just a picture of a Bigfoot statue for months after it was finished. That's the only part I can answer.
Everything has to be finished. All the songs need to be finished and like in order. The visual identity, usually I just make a PowerPoint of images I like. This album sounded like Klein Blue specifically, which we'd actually seen at the Tate Museum together. And that was one of the times I actually fully remember having a conversation about the future album we were gonna make. I like to think of a movie that has to do with it. So this time it was 2001: A Space Odyssey, which I actually saw in London.
In the theater?
This is kind of like a London album. At least visually, everything ties back to London with Klein Blue in 2000. Yeah, I saw it on 70mm.
So sick.
It was, and I'd never watched it because I've been waiting to see it in a theater. And I finally went and did it, and it was so sick.
Yeah, that's a great way to see it. I've gotten to see it in 70mm too in LA, and it's just it's a feast. Okay, moving on. I am part of a forum, which feels very old school. This is from member Biscuit for Rachel. You just directed the video for Life Signs. Do you aspire to do more directing one day, say TV or independent film?
Yeah, I went to film school, I guess. That's always the dream. I didn't want to be a director, actually. More recently, I've come into the idea that it would be interesting to like do a narrative. I just never finished the one I shot in college, and it's holding me back. Right now I like to do music videos because you don't need sound.
Yeah.
and you can do everything on a budget, and you don't have to get everything.
He crammed in 6 different movies into that
Yeah,
one
I mean,
music video.
I love television like so much. I love TV. So it was really fun to do that.
What movies were sort of like prompting the scenes in Life Signs?
Life Science was like all TV.
All TV.
Yeah, this was like a sitcom, soap opera, like a western. I don't know, there's just like clicking through the channels. And my dad watched like Perry Mason almost every night when I'm home. But yeah, it was just like the tropes of television.
All right, my final question for you guys. This is just my own curiosity. Were you watching a lot of horror movies when you guys wrote Barley?
Horror movies.
Wait, well, can I?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put some words into Nate's mouth before he answers, but I feel like this guy loves horror movies. I feel like he's always watching them.
Okay.
Okay.
That makes sense.
But okay, you can actually answer now.
So here's the thing about that is that when the Barley got made, or when the track got made, like the original like sketch with the fun fact with Barley, the counting, a lot of the time when I'm like demoing ideas, I will just either like do like a little guitar melody that's like represents the vocal melody, or I will just record my voice counting the number of syllables. That's we just didn't change that. But I would honestly say more like listening to music that some may describe as horrific. So Barley's funny because there are like a couple different things going on. That's when I was like really intensely studying serialism and microtonality. So that kind of repeating phrase that happens all over that song is actually a 24-note quarter tone scale that I derived using the random number generator on random.org. That was how I was writing mostly at that time. And
Wait, can you say that? Can you say that again? I'm not sure.
so if you're using quarter tones, then every note gets chopped in half, right? So being 12 discrete pitches per octave, there are 20 notes. And when you're working with serialism, the basic idea is that you have a series of numbers. The whole point of serialism originally was to give structure to atonal music that does not have a key. So if you have the 12 notes in an octave and you have an order for them that everything in the composition is based off, the idea being that no pitch repeats itself until every other pitch has come through in the series, so it have like a safeguard against some particular key. And you can come up with what that series is any way you want. So at the time, for those who know what it is, I was just almost as like a puzzle thing. I was making these giant quarter tone matrices, which is a visual way of laying out a series forwards, backwards, and in its whatever inversions. A lot of atonal music just sounds a little spooky.
Sure.
But
Yeah,
the
it
whole
sounds
idea
a
with
little
that
bit like of a slasher film vibe.
and the idea was to essentially try to just like Trojan horse something that was like super uncompromisingly atonal that way into a pop song. So I just took a really scary sound and then tried to pretty much just like remake Tomorrow Never Knows on top of it and have a song with essentially like steady beat, only like a one chord song that just has all these different things floating in and out of it. I was like super obsessed with Revolver at this time.
The Beatles album?
Yeah. Tomorrow Never Knows for being the kind of like reference point for that song. Because that song uses so.
Oh, yeah.
And that
that
that song is tonal, the way they use varying speeds of things and sounds from nature necessarily conform to a particular pitch. The way the seagulls function in that song, the way the train horn or whatever that is functions, something about that stuff always really got under my skin, and I realized at a certain point that those sounds are microtonal, and that's part of what if that like horn sound was perfectly in tune with what was going on, it would be a much less complicated emotion being communicated.
This is fascinating, and I feel like we should almost just maybe listen to it since it's already
I think that would make sense.
It's already
blast the
on
fuck
the
out of Tomorrow
table.
Never Knows. Right
and we
now.
don't have that much time. To wrap this up, I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for coming. It's truly lovely, like hearing some of the thought that goes behind and how you guys think about this. And it is no surprise to me that this music works from the way that you're approaching it. It seems so personal and so cathartic for you guys to create. And there's something that's almost poetic about that resonating the way it does once it finally gets out there. It's truly unique and fascinating music for the times. And I'm excited for everybody else to get their hands on. It's a beautiful place, and I'm excited to spend more time with it. Last thing I'll say is if you guys just want to maybe look at this camera and tell them when they can expect your record.
First, I'd like to say thank you for having us. You have two of the most beautiful dogs I've ever seen. It's been really hard to concentrate. As Nate said, what's a song to a dog?
Did I say that?
This dog
That's a good
sings.
point. Yeah.
So he really likes music.
Whoa.
Like he has a whole playlist of favorite songs that he sings on command.
Oh my God.
I could put on a Bob Dylan song right now and he'll howl to the moon, like uncontrollably. Music is something to this dog.
I'd rather have a dog than a song. Anyways, we're Water From Your Eyes, and our album, It's a Beautiful Place, comes out on August 22nd on Matador Records.
2025.